Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Event Tech Talk Show. I'm Adam Parry, your host, and this week I am joined by Beezar, Sirini and Danis Nova, co-founders of a company called Boost Express, and they're building a new way for trade shows and their exhibitors to advertise together. Now, they call it event-endorsed advertising. I think I got that from their website. And we're going to get into how the model works, where the money comes from, and why investors are paying attention as well. So Beezar, Danis, welcome both to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be on here.
So for anybody who hasn't come across Boost Express yet, can you just, in your own words, describe the problem that you're solving and who it's for?
So the problem we're solving is essentially connecting two different worlds that currently live detached from each other while they're in reality very much connected and intertwined. So imagine a company is going to a large trade show to get in front of the right buyers, to leverage the momentum of that show to accelerate pipeline, create pipeline, close deals, and meet new people, right? We're all going to these events for business purposes, but we're also looking for serendipitous meetings between building new partnerships, getting to know new people, and bringing on new business. On top of that, there's something that, my old CEO used to call assist serendipity. So we're looking for these serendipitous moments, but we want to add and nudge that serendipity. So here at Boost, we're doing exactly that. We're extending the lifespan, the value of an event beyond the 3 or 4 days of the show floor, where buyers and sellers can engage and interact together in a way that they're doing already, but without the show or without the event being involved. Everybody is on LinkedIn, everybody's on Google, everybody's running lead generation campaign, brand visibility campaigns, but they're fundamentally detached from anything they're doing at the event. And the bridge that, here at Boost that we're bridging is connecting that existing spend, that existing effort, those proven channels, which is LinkedIn, Google, Meta, for lead generation and brand building purposes, with the event. And by leveraging the brand name of the event, by leveraging the audiences, the first party data in a GDPR compliant way to help sponsors and exhibitors generate more business.
So how do you describe what you are doing? Because it feels to me like a relatively new category, more so in the event space maybe, but is it event-led? Is it event-endorsed advertising? Is it co-marketing, collaborative ads? Like, how do you describe it to show organizers when you're discussing it with them?
That's the piece that has been, what really works, Adam? Free money. When we
Free money.
hey, just give us a couple of minutes. Give us a couple of minutes and we'll explain and we'll show you, not just share and tell you, but show you how there's free money that's available to you. It's budgets that are already existing. We're converting 57. We did an investor update earlier today. In Q1, we converted 57% of every exhibitor that we spoke with into a paying client, right? So it is fundamentally new to the event space. But Danis and the core team have a background in B2C marketplace, trade media network advertising, where imagine you're on Amazon, you look at a children's bicycle for your son, your daughter, your niece, you don't complete the purchase. You move over to Google, you're on Instagram, you're scrolling, and then you see an ad for that same bicycle where the seller on Amazon is now leveraging the reach and data of Amazon to get that bicycle in front of you and to complete that purchase. In B2C world, the value of that purchase, is a couple of $1,000s at most. In the B2B world, that value is in the hundreds of thousands, if not in the millions. So how can we leverage that existing brand and that existing data of the events to, get more business out of it, provide more value for the organizer, but also for the attendee, as well as for, and specifically for the exhibitors doing business.
Interesting. Let's look at it from an exhibitor point of view. So I've just signed up to a show. I'm investing in square meters. I've onboarded with the organizer team. At what point does the exhibitor get introduced to Boost Express, and what does the experience look like as they are onboarding onto Boost Express and get to start to be able to access those opportunities that you're presenting to them with the organizer data?
So there's a couple of different approaches here, depending on because we are new and we are the only one that does co-branded advertising at the scale that we do. The only ones that we're essentially competing with or supporting is internal teams that as part of a top tier sponsorship package, they have to social media post or a promoted post on their pages. The way we operate, we know that the sales teams of the organizer are very, very strong and incredible at what they do. But digital marketing, advertising is not per se a language that they speak, nor are the people that they're speaking with for the square meters, the budget holders that are spending money on LinkedIn and Google for lead gen or brand building. So the way we operate, and I think it's important to mention that we don't cost anything for the organizer. We work on a pure revenue share model, no upfront cost, no licensing cost. Maybe that will change next year, but currently it's all pure revenue share, where we go in, we look at the exhibitor data set and then, or the confirmed exhibitors. For some associations, for some events, we're actually working with everybody that's part of the ecosystem of the organizer, not necessarily the confirmed exhibitors of that specific event. So we look at the exhibitors that are confirmed, and then we enrich that data by finding the budget holders for lead generation or digital advertising. Any company that's above 15 or 20 people or certain revenue threshold has those functions usually separated. So we find those people that are responsible for creating and running ads, and we engage them. And we're seeing 34, 35% engagement rates there. So those people really, really understand what we do. Our average sales call is 17, 18 minutes at most. They don't want to know, or the questions are not necessarily around what do you guys do, how does it work, but it's more like how can we get this started, what are some of the CTRs, and what are some of the metrics that we can expect. And then it's a credit card swipe within the next day, usually a day later. So that process is relatively simple. From the organizer, it's half a day for the first event, setting up a CNAME, connecting HubSpot, and that's more or less it.
I think what's really interesting that I'd pull out there is that you mentioned that you actually talk to a different department within most of those organizations and therefore probably a different budget, right? So I think in the past, maybe others might have thought that you'd, by Boost Express, introducing Boost Express to the exhibitor, that's potentially revenue that could have been invested into the show. But it sounds to me like it's almost a different team and a different budget that could be dealing with these investments and these campaigns with these exhibitors. Am I understanding that correct?
You're 100% spot on. You're 100% spot on. So look at a bigger company, everything rolls up to the CMO, but in reality, they have different budgets and different buckets of money. One of them is for digital lead generation, advertising, announcements, etc. And the other one is for events. And Adam, I know, I've been to your events many, 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 many moons ago and still very much appreciate the work you're doing. But it's from an event perspective, it's really hard to do an upsell. And the reason that it's hard is these budgets are confined over a series of events as part of their go-to-market strategy. And they have, XYZ for each of those events. And it's really hard to increase that because it's a preset number. On the other bucket, or in the other bucket, they have the digital advertising budget or lead generation budget that goes to Google, LinkedIn, and Meta. That's the three places 9 out of 10 times that money is going to. Those people spend a lot of money on sometimes millions a month at the bigger companies, right? Whereas on the event side, it's prefixed. So we're tapping into those budgets. We have exhibitors come in and post-show, they add another $10,000, like you and I would be buying a cup of coffee. And $10,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of everything that they're spending on LinkedIn, Google, and Meta, it's really, cup of coffee money for them to experiment, to prove the point, see all of the metrics. I think the hardest thing of myself, but also what we hear from exhibitors going to events, is proving the ROI coming out of it. The day you leave, you collected, I'm going to do this. You collect a bunch of business cards. Some events are much more strong than others. And then you hope for the salespeople to process those correctly or marketing to attribute. What we do is we instantly pull the data that's generated already through LinkedIn, Meta, and Google. So that performance, CTR, CPM, etc., clicks, likes, is visible to them immediately. And the CFO really understands and can process and can put an ROI number to that spend. So that's why it's so easy for them to not only spend a lot of money there, but also leverage the data points to justify why they're spending so much money. Whereas bringing an exhibitor into an event or doing an upsell is usually a slightly harder uphill battle.
I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts. So collaborative ads actually perform much better than the own advertising of sponsors. And it is easy to show that you are better by showing better CTRs, better engagement, and leads in the end. So when you are competing for the portion of the budget, you are actually just redistributing the same ad spend that was spent on LinkedIn and Google, but now they will be spent with events and will show better results. It's just an easy call to make.
That kind of nicely leads me on to kind of one of the other questions, because prior to this podcast recording, and in many conversations that we've had, we've talked a lot about health, which is one of the events that you guys work with and have worked with really successfully. And forgive me if I get the statistic wrong. You can put me right, but I think if memory serves me right, Alpha put in about 20% of its own ad spend into funding or supporting exhibitor campaigns as well, right? And probably the question that many people have got would be, why is that better economically or for the event and the exhibitor than just keep continuing to put that investment and that funding into what would be traditional display advertising, their own Google campaigns, their own LinkedIn campaigns, things like that?
So you're right on the 20%, but it's slightly different. The 20% is the margin that the organizer typically applies to the media spend. Okay. So that's where that 20% comes from. What we see more and more organizers do, and including health contemplating and looking into that, in Q1, we released a feature so a step back. Boost Express leverages the advertising accounts of LinkedIn, Google, and Meta of the event, plus the event data, creating segments. And then an exhibitor comes in and selects a segment, CEOs within hospitals in, Northeast, if those are segments that are available. So they select those 3 segments, put a budget to it, and they run the ads. Every event that we work with, number one priority is to get more qualified people in the door. So one of the things that we released in Q1 is come in, run these ads, leveraging the event brand, so the social media handle on LinkedIn, for example, as well as the data. But on top of that, bring your own data. So instead of just leveraging the first-party data of the event, every company knows who their target audience is. If not, with tools like Clay and Apollo, you can very quickly understand your core audience and your ICPs. These companies bring in their own ICPs, and that's where the events are looking to contribute budget. Say, if you bring in your own database, that will spend $500 in advertising budget, and you can spend that money running ads. Why are events doing this? Who's better positioned to bring in extremely qualified people? Is that me as an event trying to attract as much people as possible? Or is that me as an exhibitor who know who my clients are, who my pipeline of open deals is, and who my target audiences is? Because I have that very, very minutely detailed and I know who these people are. So if I bring 1,500 of those people into a campaign, leveraging the health or the event brand, more qualified people are now part of the ecosystem. Those people convert, they see the ads, they click into them. All of that traffic essentially comes back to the event landing pages specific for that exhibitor or that lead magnet, but it's within the event domain. It's within the event ecosystem. So that register button is right there. So a lot of the events that we're working with are absolutely fine allocating some of their own advertising budget as long as exhibitors bring in some of their own audiences.
It's very interesting. I think as a show organizer myself, you look at a show floor and maybe you have 100 exhibitors, 200 exhibitors, whatever, and you think all of these companies themselves have spent a long time building their own database sets, whether that's through content, other events and things like that, right? And let's say an average is 10,000. Most companies have probably got in excess of way more than 10,000, especially some of the larger companies. There's a huge pool of opportunity, isn't it, to attract a very relevant audience, not only to come and see your event and the content and stuff, but actually to see them as well, right? An opportune time to come and meet them in person. I guess one question I have, and it'd be interesting to see if you've had any pushback on this yet, how comfortable, in all honesty, are those exhibitors uploading that valuable data to Boost Express? Or how have you structured that so they can be confident that they're not just giving away the golden keys kind of scenario?
And I think you're touching on something which is fundamentally important, because events carry incredibly about their data. so do these exhibitors, right? They don't want to just hand over, and you're not even allowed, right? Even if you wanted to. So we all get these emails saying, hey, I have the attendee list of XYZ event, download it here, pay me $100, $500. I have everything for you, right? If you're big enough of a company or, structured in a certain way, you're not even allowed to buy that data, let alone even if they send it to you as an attachment, you can't do anything with it. So that is incredibly important. Nobody gets access to a single underlying first name, last name, email address, or anything. The only thing on both sides that's visible is a segment. So if I leverage the event data, so I'm an exhibitor, I'm leveraging the event data, I can do industries, I can do seniority, I can do job titles. Those are the segments that I select, and that's it. On the other side, when I'm an individual exhibitor and I bring in my own segments, the only thing that the organizer can see is the naming convention of my segment. So it's ICP, hospitals, clients, ICP, hospital, non-engaged, prospects, ICP, hospital, engaged, prospects. So these are the segments that an exhibitor is creating, and they're running different call to actions for those different segments that they're bringing in, essentially leveraging the event brand to amplify their message. And the really, really valuable thing, when they do this, the relationship with the event is no longer confined to the 3 days of, the second week of October. The relationship that exhibitor now has with the organizer is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, because they have that existing relationship with Google, with LinkedIn, with Meta, and they have those existing budgets that are running on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And we're just bringing exactly that money that they're already spending to spend it through the event with a high margin and deliver better results.
And do you see in a scenario in which an organizer, or maybe there are organizers already doing this, right? Every show has this challenge that it's not always that the show doesn't align. It's maybe that the dates don't align for a particular exhibitor. Maybe they've already committed to something else, or maybe there's just not quite enough budget to make a physical exhibiting presence feasible, airfare, hotels, accommodation, maybe even a staff and logistics issue. A show organizers also, though, using Boost Express as a way to be able to give those companies that still want to target that audience, maybe still want to engage with them in a meaningful way, promote something to them and target them, or our show organizers being, no, in order to access, this is a premium access feature, it's a benefit to being invested in the show, it's a benefit to being at the show, because we need a point and destination in which to point these people to come and meet you and get real ROI. I'm interested to see what other organizers are thinking out there.
So I think instead of thinking of it that way, or even going down that train of thought, let's flip that on its head. What's the upside that we're currently not tapped into as an event? Again, I'm capturing maybe potentially anywhere between 10 to 35K as average boot size, right? Depending on whatever event you have. What is that same company spending on a monthly basis on Google, LinkedIn, and Meta, right? The opportunities, and again, there are shows that are protective of their event unless you have and most shows are like this right now. Unless you have a registered confirmed exhibitor booth, you're not allowed to run campaigns, which makes total sense because they want to bring everything and funnel everything there. But those shows have massive upside available to them because they can tap into, again, that 12 months always on current budgets that, you don't have to negotiate on. You don't have to help them understand the value of, an additional sponsorship package or an additional banner. No, you're doing it on LinkedIn. Let's just bring it into our LinkedIn, gets you much more value, stronger CTR. Wait, what is the average CTR? 1.16 across all campaigns. We're doing 0.6, and then we seeing, and according to LinkedIn, that's great. So if an average CTR for LinkedIn at great, or at average CTR is between 0.4 and 0.6 something, we're averaging 1.16 for the clients that we have so far, which according to LinkedIn's own stat is fantastic. And I think Danis, you have the biggest outlier.
We see both attitudes from organizers. So some try to incentivize their sponsors to buy sponsorship packages in order to advertise, which is understandable, but more and more organizers understand themselves and see themselves as a communication platform for sponsors. So being able to co-brand and communicate with sponsors all year round, just build your own brand and they understand it. So, okay, you can have a hybrid of it. So, for example, 2-3 months before the event, they're only exhibiting companies can advertise, but through all other months, nothing stands in between. You can pop your brand and refresh your engagement with audiences all year round. So it's just an obvious thought, and we just need to communicate it and explain it to organizers.
It's interesting you gave that scenario, Danis, because I remember there was a publication in the events industry a good few years ago. I think it was a company called Square Meal and Events, very London-centric, London-based publication. And I believe, again, quote me if I'm wrong, anybody listening in or watching this back, but they had a rule of thumb that you couldn't actually exhibit at the event unless you met a certain minimum amount of advertising and marketing within the publication. I'm not sure why, but I would imagine that justification came from, in order to deliver the audience for the event, we have to have a robust media publication. There needs to be brand visibility, brand recognition, and the two work kind of together. And I can see maybe event organizers kind of adopting some of that approach, like you said, maybe for the 3 months in the lead up to the show or the 2 months in the lead up to the show and the month after the show, that's exclusively for those exhibitors. But coming from a publishing background, like you said, those companies, those individuals, those buyers don't stop buying the 363 days that the event's not on, right? And those companies, those with budget, certainly don't stop marketing and advertising themselves. There has always been this slight disconnect between the publishers of the world that run events and, I would say, the pure play trade show kind of model, which doesn't really do generally a great deal in digital or publishing and stuff like that, because they've got a show floor to fill, right? They've got huge halls to fill and square meters, and that's the priority. Some of these budget certain events, they're not also deemed to be worth their time. They're selling stands at $1 million or something like that, versus maybe a couple of tens or 50s or hundreds of thousands of dollars even in ad spend and stuff. So I think it'll be really interesting over the years to see how each organizer kind of utilizes the systems and the rules that they put around their own events and ecosystems. But it certainly does strike me as probably one of the easiest ways of recent to not even have to, running meta campaigns and LinkedIn campaigns and things like that. For any show organizer, they're super complex. You generally need an agency, you generally need somebody else to come in. So I think Boost Express is also solving
the end value of publication and trade show and any event is how many relevant attendees can you bring and have a meeting with a sponsor, with exhibitors. And if you are not present all year round, so I know, Adam, you like fire email newsletters, you do a lot, to engage everybody all year round. And this just one way to produce more content, more value, and show it not only to the audience that you already have, but to the audience that the exhibitor wants to see on the show floor. So basically they're helping you grow in the right direction and bring more people, growing your value for attendees and for sponsors. So co-communication, co-branding is like, for me at least, and for many organizers that we are working right now, becoming like a natural standard thing to do, because you can do so much on your own in running ads, in producing content and emails. But when you join forces and you do it data driven, you can segment a certain message to a specific audience. You can A/B test different messages. That's what we are doing right now, because it's not just placing the ad out there. You need to make sure that it resonates. You're not overspending. You're not spending on the wrong message. Many smaller and mid-size sponsors companies, they don't have this expertise. And we are doing it as a part of our additional Boost Pro service. We plan and run these tests to show which message resonates with which audience, so you can enhance it. So it means the organizer brand becomes more efficient in communicating different values to different segments of attendees. At the same time, sponsors, they can just launch campaigns and forget and have the result. By the end, by the day of the show, they will have more meetings, more recognition, better communication, because they know which messages resonates, which is also important. So market intelligence is one of additional values that we yet understand how to explain to both the organizers and sponsors, but it is important.
Let me pose this question to you: Is there an upper limit? Is there a capacity? What happens in that amazing world where everybody wins? Let's say every single exhibitor wants to spend $100,000 on marketing to an audience. Let's say it's something really high value. I don't know, Auto Mechanica, Money 2020, one of these like really high end. The companies have got a lot of budget potentially to spend. The contracts are worth a huge amount of money. Is there an upper capacity to how many ads and things can be served to an audience online?
Exactly. Well, market competition happens, and we saw it with marketplaces. So the best sellers who have better products, better conversions, they would spend more because they can afford to do it.
Okay.
And there's certainly a cap for capacity for the amount of ads you can show to a certain audience, but the prices keep rising. So if you bring in 100, 200, 300 sponsors that are bidding for a certain niche audience, the prices will grow, will rise, and whoever have a will or budgets to spend more and overbid others, they will win. But they need to have a better product, higher margins, I don't know, in order to sustain it. So for organizer, it means the limit is, it exists, but non-existent. Let's say non-existent, because sponsors will try to outbid each other, and it will just grow your revenue per attendee, per audience. But for sponsors, those who will not be able to outbid, they will just stop spending, and it will just find its equilibrium. That's what is happening in marketplaces like Amazon and others. And it is just, we saw it in numbers. Pareto law works like a charm. 20% of sponsors will bring in 80% of revenue for you, and there will be a long.
And I would just pose the question, Adam. When was the last time you heard, maybe on more than one count, where exhibitors were outbidding for the square meters? Like, no, I want to pay $100 more for the square meter. No, I'm paying $150 more, which in our world sounds preposterous, right? On the other side, it's reality, and it's been reality for as long as Google has been doing this.
Maybe there will be some very entrepreneurial new show organizer that will list all of their square meters on eBay or something like that.
By upbidding, by auction.
But it's true, and I think, just talking to you and knowing you guys for a number of years now, and seeing you launch and the growth that you've gained, I think that the question that is posed to me, and I'm sure you see this future, is why would a show organizer choose to continue to do what I would class as a traditional campaigns around their show, right? Which is their own LinkedIn campaigns, their own Google campaigns for audience acquisition, when they could invest that same amount of money targeting their exhibitors database to bring them in, part funding exhibitor campaigns so the exhibitors get more ROI, which obviously means healthier rebook and show growth and things like that from everybody getting more out. And I think, like Danis said earlier, that co-marketing, that co-promoting is much stronger than on solo, right? At the end of the day, the ads go through the event's approved pages, so it's not necessarily getting lost on other channels and things like that. So they would be the same channels that they would be promoting themselves. And actually, like I said to you before, it kind of almost takes the need out for that third-party agency, because it's much simpler and easier to set all of this up within Boost Express, rather than having an agency going onto these individual platforms and kind of plot them all out and report on them and all that kind of stuff. I guess is that the hope for you guys, that this is the preferred choice versus the traditional kind of platforms?
I would say no, not per se.
Okay.
Because the agencies serve a different point. So you know this better than me, and you've been doing this a long time. But from our experience talking to some like smaller shows, but also the very large ones, the agency money or the event attendee acquisition money is typically a month and let's say 3 months at most, 3 months pre-event, usually closer. If we look at registration, I don't have the latest numbers on on my fingertips, but I think 50-60% registered in the last couple of weeks. They book their plane tickets, they know they're going, they book their hotel, but like the ticket for the venue or the event, I could do that walking to the venue. And I'm guilty of that. I've arrived in a country, I've left the hotel, and that's only when I register. And I do apologize. But to your point, I think what we see is that the money that exhibitors collectively can spend is infinitely more than what the show itself is spending acquiring attendees and running ads. And the show itself is only doing that 2 or 3 months prior to the event date. Whereas, especially coming out of, year one that we're working with a show, we're continuously running ads, the month after, 2, 3, 4, 5 months after, 6 months after, 6 months before, 5 months before, right? So the acquisition, the brand, the event brand always being top of mind, instead of me saying, look at how great I am, the show, it's actually an exhibitor saying, look at our new product release in collaboration with the show. It's the show saying, look at this exhibitor launching a new product or this new partnership announcement. That carries fundamentally different value. So I think if anything, this actually opens up the agencies, and maybe this is a challenge for them, is to be much more creative and experiment with new models or new initiatives, because now they have the bandwidth. Because on this side, they're seeing let's take the example of health. In the last 6 months, we've spent over 110 or 120,000 of exhibitor money highlighting the event, right? For their own purposes, right? Their lead generation, brand visibility, all of these different exhibitors. But it's always under the banner of the event. If we know we've had 1.4 million impressions, 17,500 clicks within these very specifically very valuable audiences, if we see that exhibitors have brought in 18,000 highly qualified, their ICPs into the show ecosystem, we know, and we now feel confident enough, and we have the numbers to back it up, that we can start playing around and trying different initiatives, because we have objective A, get in front of people, covered already in a much stronger way. So I think if nothing, this for agencies is a much stronger way, changes and improves their relationship from a purely launching ads and that's about it, to driving much more value and playing around and becoming a stronger integrated part of the event ecosystem.
So agencies are actually quite complementary and almost partners to Boost Express on the wider campaign viewpoint for a show organizer. So you've recently launched the ability for show organizers now to also target exhibitor data and invest in show audience acquisition and support the growth of the show in that way. What else is on the roadmap, maybe in the future or towards the end of this year? What should people be also looking forward to come out from the team at Boost?
We are
Danis is excited about this. Let's go.
Working on the AI agent. So part of our backend processes is supported by the AI agents. They produce creatives, manage campaigns much better than people do. And we want to give this experience to sponsors. So to make it 100% personalized for the sponsor. So the very beginning of the flow would start with personalized landing pages, personalized creative that were produced for you based on the knowledge that we have of you, the public knowledge. And then you just fine tune it through the process, and we will give you the entire campaign for review before you even pay. And then after that, all the communication, explanation, insights, reporting will be done by the agent. So it is a big release for us that we are working on right now. And there are several ideas that we are discussing with our existing organizers, like basically enabling other channels for monetization, cold outreach, emails, and even event apps, because we have the technology to embed our native placements in different places of the app, and basically using the same budget to advertise in other channels, but again, using agent to automate it. Yeah, that's I guess those are the key updates that we are working on for these.
And I think Danis is underselling the value of those native placements, right? So again, let's take the example of the recent event of health. We have done over 1 million impressions, and imagine, so right now that's only, we're only working on LinkedIn, but once we launch the ability to do embedded ads on the event app, on the registration page, on the event website, on announcements, podcasts they make, we are, quadrupling the inventory. But essentially, and much more valuable than that, is we no longer have to pay LinkedIn for the ads. So instead of like 40, 50% margin on the ads, it's actually 100% margin on the ads. And we're getting in front of the right audience. If you're running an event and you have the event app, I think the only thing of value that is actually has a high ticket price is the splash screen on the event app. Everything else is a couple of $100, etc. Really, really marginal. If we can come in and spend $60K on running ads for the individual high value ICPs of ABC company, and through registration, because you selected that, you spend more than $3 million a year on, X. Now these 6 companies are outbidding each other to get in front of you at the checkout saying, hey, complimentary, thank you on behalf of X. That's where it really, really becomes strong. And that's where we're bringing in things that already exist in other places, right? If we, as a consumer, we go through to buy something at the Nike store or, Zalando, you are targeted and they know exactly who you are and they're serving you and pushing you in a certain direction that is most valuable to them to either come back and repeat or to just, sell you more or upsell you. We have that same technology in-house, again, to the B2C marketplace of Danis and the core team previously. So I think that's going to be a fundamental shift. And that's where we get into the, publishers realm of making money, to the point you were making earlier. There is infinite ability to run ads, but there's also not infinite, but there's infinite money to be spent on advertising that is already being spent. And this is the thing that I think I want to double down and emphasize. It's not for nothing we're converting 57% of exhibitors we speak with, and we're not speaking to 40% of exhibitors. So let's make that clear. But we're converting 57% of exhibitors because they fully understand what it is.
Yeah,
they're doing it already. And that's really I think the opportunity in front.
I think the 2 things I'll take away from that for sure and excites me as a show organizer is, to Danis's point with the AI agents, you're making the process of ad curation, ad design, ad delivery super easy, especially for those smaller companies, right? You're making it accessible to everybody. Some companies don't have maybe even any experience creating these creative assets, right? And things like that. You see it on Meta now. You can have suggested kind of ads and copy and things based on one creative, can't you, to try and keep it fresh and interesting in front of that audience. So to be bringing that in is really good. I mean, it's old ad sales 101, right? We were in magazine publishing, we were told never to turn up to a sales meeting without some form of creative already pre-designed for that company, so they could visualize it and buy into it. So I think that's really good because,
you're on our product team, then, Adam. You should be on our product team, because the thing we're launching next is, so with the agent, we'll be able to do everything automated and create those personalized experiences. One step above that is we're no longer going to go and say, hey, let's have a conversation how we can, get you more meetings, get you more leads, but it's going to be activate your account.
Yeah.
And when you activate your account, everything is already preset for you. Activate your account with an impression of the campaigns that are ready for you. Changes the conversation fundamentally to, let's schedule a call. Let's see if you're interested. Are you doing something already? We go to LinkedIn, library, advertising library, and you can look for the company name and see what they're doing. Or you look for the event name and you see which company's already running ads. It's actually, hey, you're doing this already. Here's a better way of doing it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
The idea smaller and like medium-sized companies not having the enough expertise, it's actually, the problem is bigger than that. In order to B2B advertising is fundamentally different from B2C, because your entire audience might be 10,000 people or 20,000 people. You can't experiment enough. You can't just spend burn 50,000 people and then you have another 100 million to communicate. So it's not, in order to manage it, you need to do a lot of analytical stuff, different creative production and daily operations. That was not just possible before the agents, because if you just put it in all the costs, you will eat up all the benefits of the advertising. So we are not only we are enabling new budgets with this, because if you have everything automated and everything delivered to you at zero cost, really marginal cost of operation, you can just introduce new budgets and spend more. So I'm really fascinated about this topic, because I'm literally working on it right now. There's so many nuances on how you would run B2B advertising campaigns, and I truly believe if when we will see agents as a standard, the budgets will be several x more than we see right now. And right now, the advertising market is 80 billion, I guess, plus or something. It's not a small market. So we can siphon it into events business. So that's really exciting.
I totally agree with that. Like, events should have the ability to be elevated into the same space as, you know, these platforms and things that allow these companies to market themselves. I think one of the things that I would kind of get other show organizers to think about is that, you know, a show, especially with history, comes with a level of authority and trust, right? So therefore, if the ad is served through that platform and with that brand, then comes with that trust and authority. Whereas an ad just displayed on kind of any other website, how is that person to know if that's a trusted, vetted kind of company and things like that? Part of that onboarding process, or that relationship between the organizer and the supplier, is that vetting, right? If they're doing their job well. And I think what's really exciting to me in that second point that you made, Beezar, was, you know, the untapped potential in where these adverts can be served, the event app, the website, the podcast, the other platforms and tools and outlets that in all honesty, show organizers, I think, because it sits out of their core focus, have always struggled to monetize, right? And I can see an opportunity where a show organizer could probably even double the revenue on digital advertising based on what the show does throughout the rest of the year and around the show, but without the other additional kind of inherent, you know, cost of delivery that comes along with that, right? Because it costs a lot of money to put a show on. So it seems to me like huge amounts of untapped potential in terms of revenue.
Incredible amounts. And I think something that we're seeing over the last 3-4 weeks. I've been selling event tech for the last 11, 12 years. Originally at Double Dutch, we got acquired by Cvent, and we were really expensive back then. And more recently at Swapcard, where we were also really expensive compared to some cookie cutter or other tech out there. What we've seen, and you have to pay for a premium product. Here at Boost, we don't cost anything. What we see over the last couple of weeks is more and more tech companies that are coming to us and saying, hey, we have placement possibilities. We have a lot of real estate in our tech. We're charging money to the organizer, but it's harder and harder for us to justify costs because everybody's looking at their costs. So I think the first step is really to just offset all of the tech spend that organizers are having, but the opportunity is far, far larger than that. The problem with almost all event tech is that it's solely focused and solely relevant in the event days. That's it. Even the best apps, you know, I've worked with multiple organizers, large scales that have paid millions for their event tech just on the app side of things. And they were not able to monetize it outside of the event days. And the splash screen was the most valuable piece of real estate. But outside of that, that was more or less it, right? They're still paying $100,000 or $80,000 for an event app. In 6 months, we've made more than $100,000.
Yeah. Pays for itself.
Imagine we're forecasting to come in at, you know, 300,000 by the end of this year. We're working with one large organizer, and in the beginning, so I have an Excel file where we do math on potential revenue, and based on all exhibitors and different adoption percentages, it really easily goes into the millions. At some point, I stopped showing it. But now that we actually have real revenue numbers that we can pull up on the screen, now I slide in the Excel file. I'm like, this is what is happening right now, and this is where we forecast it to be, and that's the number.
Yeah.
Because it is reality. And we're not making it up. When Danis first told me, so we met at a UFI event in Switzerland, and I was still at a previous company. And he just told me, and honestly, he's an adorable guy and he's incredibly smart. But I wasn't really interested in speaking with him because I was eyeballing all of these CEOs of you know, those messes, etc. And when he spent like 6 sentences explaining to me what he was thinking, I just looked around like, you're on to incredible things. Because I've been I've been part of the painful side of that conversation for the last 4 years. Here, please sign on the dotted line for the next 3 years at $1.5 million a year. Good luck recouping your money. Oh, we're generating this many data points for you. What you can do with it? Yeah, good luck. Yeah, you need to figure that out yourself. And this is the other side of that coin, is where this is how we leverage that data. These golden records, these impressions, this knowledge that even Google doesn't have over people. Because when you're filling out the registration form, you're getting very explicit questions asked. When you're going through the event and you're going to session 1, session 3, you're scanning a product, you're going into an exhibitor, they're filling out the lead qualifier, etc., etc. This is incredible data points that an organizer has, that the sole reason these exhibitors are there is to meet the right people. So when we come to the event, we have all of these golden records, incredible understanding, detailed understanding of all of these attendees that are going through it, and also the need of the exhibitors. If we can bring that together, the value for the exhibitor becomes X. Again, selling event tech, I'm not used to an exhibitor coming in and just swiping a credit card and topping up another 10K a month for the last couple of months. I'm just not used to that. But in the advertising world, spending 10K a month,
just the starting point.
Yeah.
Some are spending 10K a day. It's not even a month.
100%. Those are not clients yet, Adam, but those are not clients yet.
We'll get them. We'll get them. I think the final thought that I would leave with any show organizer that's been, made it this far and got trapped by our very catchy title of free money for trade shows for this podcast. As the team at Boost have said, for the moment, there is no cost to onboard on this solution, right? Your exhibitors are already invested. You've already signed them up at this point. This is not a distraction to them. This is potential additional value for everybody involved. I can't think of a reason not to try it, right? There is no real downside to it. Okay, if exhibitors don't adopt it, they don't adopt it. If a few do, brilliant. They've got more out of the show. You've got a couple of extra $1,000 to pump back into ad revenue. If it goes well, everybody's laughing, more attendees, happier exhibitors, and a bunch more revenue on the bottom line, right? So on that, where should show organizers go to sign up? Who should they reach out to? What's the best way to get started?
Yeah. So I think just to help them understand what they're getting themselves into, setup and launch is couple hours. And we know that the salespeople of the show are incredibly strong and powerful. We know that the show has an incredible brand name, but selling digital and media and advertising is maybe not their strong suit. We take care of all of that. So after the couple hours, the only thing an organizer has to do is once a week or once a day, and we can even take care of that, approve the assets, because nothing goes out without the organizer's final approval, just in line with branding and those kind of things. How they can get started with us, just reach out on LinkedIn, send me an email, beezar@boost.express. We'll add some details to this as well and clickable things. It truly is a win-win for everybody involved. The attendee wins because they're seeing relevant content. The exhibitor wins because they're getting more leads and they're getting the same analytics pre-event, on-event, post-event that they're already getting from their LinkedIn spend. And the organizer wins because they get more valuable relationship with the exhibitor, they get free advertising money, and they get free margin that we bring in and deliver, and they can see everything in real time as well.
Perfect. Beezar, Danis, thank you very much for both joining me and discussing what you're up to, how you're delivering more value to attendees, exhibitors, and show organizers. For everybody that listened in today, if you like this episode of the podcast, give it a share to your network. It all helps out, especially for the Boost team. Leave a comment. If you're an event tech founder and you think you've got something interesting to share, you can shoot me an email at adam@eventtechlive.com to potentially feature on an episode. And if you want to meet the Boost team, come along and register for Event Tech Live in November. They'll be on site next to the Central Bar.
We're signed up
together. So thanks a lot, guys. Yeah. And we'll see everybody.
Thanks, everybody.